Hey guys, so a slightly different video for our very first video of 2022. I recorded the entire video already actually, but unfortunately my computer decided to crash right as the file was saving, and because of that I have to re-record the entire video, but I didn't print this off to be savable at home, so I can't print off a new one right now. So we're just going to do a slightly different type of video where the answers are already here, and I'm going to kind of go through one by one with a different piece of paper over it. And so I can kind of explain step by step exactly what's going on. I apologize for the weird format of the video, but that's kind of what's going to have to happen. So for at least for the first couple of numbers up here, you already see the answers here. I guess you could fast forward to see what it is, but I'm going to do my best to explain step by step the idea behind these questions, especially for those of you guys who are unfortunately still stuck at home and not able to come to school right now. So first of all, it says completing the square, and you're finding values that complete the square and you're rewriting as a perfect square. In order to do that, you have these blank spots. The blank is the number that completes the square. So you find that number by always doing the same thing. You're going to take the middle value here, divide it by 2. In this case, -8 divided by 2 is -4. And you're going to put a star on it. After you've done that, you're going to square the result. When I say the word square the result, I'm saying multiply by itself. You're taking that -4 and you're doing -4 times -4, and that'll get you that 16. Another thing that I showed on the calculator here is that when you do your -8 and then you divide by 2, if you just immediately tap the square button right here, you just tap that guy, it'll say A&S squared. That stands for answer squared. So you hit enter and it's going to give you a 16, and which is what that number is. So it's squaring it. It's doing the result for you. It's doing the -4 times -4. So you don't have to type all of it out all the way. So it'll just do the work for you. And if you need help practicing with the calculator, definitely ask me in school. I really recommend it. Continuing on, so for this one, you do the same exact idea. You take that middle term, you divide by 2, put the star, and then square it. That middle number here will again go on the inside of the square, and you do need both sides of the answers to get to that final value. And now, the little mini speech that I gave in the video that got deleted. If you are a student who regularly simply just copies these answers and you don't actually listen and attempt to do the problems on your own, I highly recommend that you pause the video, try the question on your own, see if you can get it done. If you're able to do questions on your own, it will end up being a lot better for you in the end. We have these quizzes every week you got to do well, and yeah, I would really like to help you out. And you would also know that if you're struggling, you can come into my school office hours. I'm here on Mondays after school, Wednesdays after school, Fridays after school. Anytime that you need help there, I'll be willing to work with you. Continuing on, let's go to the next couple answers. So the next two were nice and simple, same exact ideas. You took that number, divided by 2, and then squared it. And rewrote that final answer yet again. We're always putting these stars to remind us that's the number that goes in, that's the number that goes in. Let's continue on. The last two questions that are on here is where you really want to get used to using the calculator. So taking a look at the answers here, how do we get these numbers on the calculator? Alpha y equals enter to give us that fraction. Alpha y equals enter. If you hit those 3 buttons in that order, it will give you the fraction. And you can do exactly the same thing that we were doing before. Divide by 2 to get the -15. Why did I divide by 2 twice? What am I doing? All right, so there's a number I divided by 2. And again, if I just square it right away, 225/4, which is what we were hoping for. Same idea on this last one. However, I did want to mention a note. If you wanted to do this part of the problem in your head to go from here down to this 40, if you notice, it's actually just multiplying the bottom by 2, multiplying by 1/2. And that will give you a nice, neat little way of doing it. Maybe a little bit more in your head. You're obviously going to need a calculator for the last step of actually squaring it, though. That's a really, really large number. All right, continuing on to this next question here. let's check out the step-by-step process of doing this. So the step-by-step process, first thing, moving that 17 to the other side should be nice and obvious. You're taking that 17 and moving it to the right makes it a negative 17. After that, this is where you did what we did in the previous questions. You complete the square. This whole process here is called completing the square. So you're going to complete the square off to the side of the question, and that's what I did. I took that 18, divided by 2, put a star, multiplied it by itself, got the 81. That number gets added to both sides of the equation. So I took that 81 and I added it to the left, which means I also needed to add it to the right. The whole point of writing it in this form is to rewrite it in the fancier version with the parentheses. And remember that 9 there comes from the star, so the star kind of works out for you there. And negative 1781, use your calculator, get 64. The next step I skip when I write the rest of the questions, but you're going to do the square root of both sides of the equation. The square root of both sides of the equation, you get the square root of x squared, and that's going to give you the absolute value of x. The idea is the square root symbol and the square cancel out completely, and you get just the x by itself. The absolute value reminds you that it's plus and minus at the same time. So you get n plus 9. Again, those parentheses and the square just vanish, and this is square root of 64. To get the square root of 64 in the calculator, the button is in the same spot as that x squared. It's right there. It's that blue one, so you'll hit second x squared, and that's going to give you that 8. That's where I get the 8. And do not forget your plus or minus sign. Very, very important to remember that plus or minus sign right there. Continuing on afterwards, you split it into 2 separate questions. N plus 9 is equal to 8, and n plus 9 is equal to negative 8, and you solve like normal. Subtract 9 on both sides, subtract 9 on both sides, and get these 2 answers. Number 8. Again, this is one that I highly recommend you try on your own, but it's exactly the same idea. We're subtracted 33 on both sides to start. We added 25 at the end here. We got that from the purple values here. We rewrote it as the perfect square, did the square root, got the plus or minus, and then we did 5 plus 1 and 5 minus 1 for our 2 answers. On the back side here, lots of similar stuff. That very number 9 there, before we move on, number 9, I'm going to say it again. This guy right here is very, very doable on your own. So I recommend trying it on your own before you see it from me. And I think I'm going to add in another sheet of paper here so that I can kind of hide answers. Oop, 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 oop. There you go, just so I don't give it away. Other parts of the answer there. So this one, not too bad yet again. We are moving things around. That negative m squared came to the right as a positive m squared. That 4m came to the left, gives you a negative 4. The 32 moved to the right, gave you a positive 32. This 4 right here is from the underline. We're adding 4 to both sides of the equation. Square root both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus sign. And you get your final answer when you split it into 2 separate. This one is the one where things get a little bit funky. So I showed a little bit extra work on this one, and the reason why I showed a little bit of extra work is pretty simple. After you've added 9 to both sides, you get this weird number, the square root of 73. And that 73, when you do the square root of it in the calculator, you get this weird decimal that never ends and it seems to go on forever. When you get these answers that go on forever like this and doesn't repeat, those are called irrational numbers. So irrational numbers can't really be messed with too much. In a physics or a chemistry class, you might get that decimal answer as an actual answer, but in my class, we're going to leave it as plus or minus square root of 73. Then we add 3 to both sides and we get this. This is fine for me, but some future teachers might require you to write it as 2 separate, 3 plus square root of 73 and 3 minus. Continuing on, so number 11 had a weird start of the question. The weird start of this number 11 question was once you've added 29 to both sides, this number right here in front has to be a 1. So because that number must be a 1, we divide 1, 2, 3, all of them by 9. When you do that, the right-hand side ends up being a fraction that we just have to deal with in the calculator, but these two come out nice and pretty. Then we completed our square just like normal. That negative 2, divide by 2, star it, put a square. That's what we add to both sides of the equation. From here to here, you have to use your calculator to add fractions. I quite literally am just typing in my calculator 23 divided by 9 plus 1, plus 1. And if you hit not alpha, math, enter, it will convert it to a fraction for you. You could have also started with a fraction, 23, sorry, over 9, and then plus 1, and that would give you that 32 over 9. Either way, we're just adding things up and getting that 32 over 9. Then you're square rooting both sides of the equation. When you square root both sides, that left-hand side, the square cancels. But on the right-hand side, you're really doing the square root here of the entire dang fraction. So when you do the square root of the entire dang fraction, the top part of it will stay alone, and the bottom part actually will come out to be a perfect square. And all of the questions that we're doing right now, every single question will have a denominator that has a perfect square. So it'll be like 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. That bottom will never get a square root. The top will, though. And for my class, you can leave the answer like this. However, for those students who would like to learn about how to make it into this fancier looking answer, I highly encourage you to come in after school and I will work with you to do that. The explanation for it is that 32 can be rewritten as 16 times 2, and the square root of 16 is 4. However, there's a little bit of a longer explanation. I can try to help you practice doing that if you need it. So I will work with you if you'd like to. Number 12, same idea as number 11, but it comes out to a nice, pretty number, kind of all on our own. I did show more work on that one in the event that you need it. And let's move on to the last two. The last two questions here have a bunch of nasty looking numbers. However, they are doable. And when you go through them, use your calculator, use that fraction addition button, use the square root calculator button correctly, and everything will come out nice and neat on number 13. Number 14 ends up with this very weird square root number. I don't plan on having questions like that on the test. If you'd like me to walk you through one-on-one any of these questions, I highly encourage it. Please ask for it. Because I did this video in a slightly different format, I didn't have that slow, nice, neat explanation that some of you are used to, and I apologize for that. Next video should be back to normal. Hopefully I don't have a crashing program recording this video. Other than that, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in class, and peace out.